good to be together today as we celebrate and dedicate our space for worship, for the bride of Christ to gather in communion and fellowship together. So thank you for coming. If you're visiting with us today, thanks for coming. If you didn't catch on, we planned a potluck after the service this morning. So I just want to encourage you, if you'd like to stick around and enjoy a meal with us. One of the things that we do a lot of things really well, but one of the things we do really well is cook. Amen. Amen. Right. I think it is a spiritual gift. Eating is a byproduct. I mean, we just get to enjoy the wonderful food. So if you have not really made any plans for lunch yet, and you're thinking, man, that sounds like a good idea, I promise you, you will not leave hungry at all. That's just a part of our story here. So, we're going to invite our kids. Go ahead and make your way upstairs. Kids Church going to take place upstairs. We got a good bunch of kids. Good bunch of kids. Reminder, if you are a parent of children who are going to kids camp, there will be a meeting right after service. Right after the service, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of tear things down in here, set up tables in here. So be about a 15-minute break, maybe. I'm saying 15 minutes. That's ministerially speaking, but that's the plan. Is we'll tear things down, set up tables here, and we'll enjoy our meal in here. But if you are part of our, if you are parents of children going to kids camp, we'll need to meet. In fact, let's just say right here, okay? If Noreen is hearing my voice, you're at the front of the sanctuary. If not, y'all can catch her and tell her what we're doing, okay? All right, super. If you're happy, you know what to say, amen? Amen. So, we're going to be in Psalm chapter 4, but first, let me kind of share with you a little bit about what's kind of taking place. Back on April 6th, my wife and I were watching TV. I don't even remember what was on. But we're watching TV. It's a Friday evening. And I get a text message. Pull it up. I look. It's from Liz Randall. And it says, Monty, this is Liz Randall. I was wondering if sometime Sunday I could sit down with you and go over a design plan I've put together with the help and input from Becky Jacobs and your wife. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds awesome. So I invited him to come over for lunch after church on Sunday. And her and Adam, you didn't know I was doing this, did you? That's all. It makes it even better. She's like, what's this? So they came over after church on Sunday, and we're eating. We finish up our lunch, and then out come the paint samples. Then out come the Pinterest pictures. I mean, it was just like boom, 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 all these ideas. And I said, man, that looks really pretty awesome. I said, can you put together a PowerPoint presentation for me that I can present to the board? Because it just so happened we had board meeting in 2 days. And so I said, we'll just present it to the board and say, hey, what do you think about this? And basically her plan that she presented to me was to paint this front wall in the dark gray, to frame in our screens, stain the wood, to strip and restain our altars, and then also to do this incredible palette wood backsplash around the cross, just to emulate the cross. And then also to build the dividers as you come in the back there. And that was a budget. I think that was about it, generally. Edison light bulbs and some of these things. It was about $700 was what she gave me as a number. But that didn't include expanding the platform. And one of the things we talked about doing was expanding the platform at some point. So Tuesday night I go to the board and I said, this is the presentation. I want to just show you some pictures and stuff. And the board was really receptive. And they said, you know what, if we're going to do all this work, let's just go ahead and extend the platform as well. I was like, okay. So our budget went from $700 to $1,500. And we included not just to extend the platform, but also a number of electrical outlets. So now we can plug all kinds of stuff. Oh, by the way, we had a 5-week deadline because we wanted to have it done by Mother's Day. Right. It was, And so the board said, yeah, let's do it. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why this was such an easy sell, because of the heart. What I heard over and over and over again is not what we're doing, but why we're doing it. You see, the why we're doing it was because we wanted to be able to create an atmosphere that a younger generation could come in and worship and sense the presence of God. And that was something the board bought into. And that was something actually that the church bought into. For some, it was probably uncomfortable. But for the sake of the kingdom, for the sake of inviting younger families in and feeling at home, feeling connected, he said, yeah, let's do it. So our first work day was that first Saturday. It was the Saturday, 2 Saturdays after the first board meeting. That was our first work day. We had planned on painting all of this, and that was pretty much going to be an all-day thing, was pretty much what we had decided. In the meantime, we'd had conversations with a couple of people about bringing in scaffolding and scissor lifts, and so those things were donated, and brought in. It was a crazy thing. It was a crazy thing. And one guy, his name's Randy, he's Lori's brother, he said, you know, if you spray that, it'd go just like that. And I said, well, okay. And little did we know that Clayton was going to come and spray it. And so that Saturday morning, as we were starting to cut stuff in and everything, Randy showed up, Clayton showed up. In fact, we had 20 people show up. And what was going to be an all-day paint job was done in 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. It was the coolest thing. We sat down and we ate lunch, and by the way, we ate good. There were some people working in the kitchen. And I mean, we stuffed our faces like only the Nazarenes could do. And over the table, we had a conversation, and somebody said, so what are you going to do about the stage? Because the stage had been extended, but it had been painted black. At least part of it had been painted black. So what are you going to do about the platform? I said, well, probably what we're going to do is we're probably going to just paint it black and put out some area rugs for now. And, oh, okay, I got that wrinkled eyebrow up, you know. Said, okay. Next thing I know, in the back of the sanctuary is coming an entire wood laminate floor that got installed within just a couple of hours. I'm like, what's going on? And it was paid for by donation. And I'm like, oh, this is crazy. And I'll tell you what was crazy about it, because just the Sunday prior to, I had preached this message about the promised land. And I preached this message about how God has a promised land for each and every one of us. But to get to the promised land, you've got to cross your Jordan River. But when we walk in faith, and when God goes first, supernatural things happen. And that day, literally, I believe, supernatural things happen. Because this was just overwhelming. Now, to carry the story on, obviously, we have this incredible backsplash that got put up. And so, like, and the dividers were put up, were built, and they were put back in the back. And as as it's winding up to Mother's Day, deadline day, you know, Adam calls me on Saturday. We talk back and forth. He says, I don't remember how it came up, but basically I planned to stop by here to see how everything was the day before D-Day, you know, the deadline day, Mother's Day. I said, so I stopped by here. By the way, it was like 11 o'clock at night. He's still up there working. And I walked in the front door, and he meets me there, and he says, okay, close your eyes and come this way. Okay, how many of you ever walked with your eyes closed? It's never a good idea. I said, can I at least just do this? He said, all right, Josh. I come in the door. He said, look to your left. Well, I said, there's nothing over there. I mean, the other left. So I looked to the other left. There's a sound booth back here. That's just, I mean, incredible. And on top of incredible, it was free because it was built out of stuff we already had. It's like, again, just God being good because this church walked in faith. True. And I'll tell you what was kind of a funny joke along the way is we'd have people who would spout up and they say, well, what about the sign out front? Or what about the driveway? Or what about the street coming in? And well, what about the lighting on the platform? Or what about the lighting in the sanctuary? And all of these things were popping up, and we'd have to say, well, this is phase 1, that's phase 2, or that's phase 7, phase 63. I mean, you know, but we're not done. There's still more things we want to do. And I just want to reiterate the why. You see, this is a wonderful facility, but it's not the church. You're the church. You're the church. And this is where the church comes to gather together, to worship together, to learn together, to cry together, to laugh together, sometimes to eat together, sometimes to pray together. This is just where we come to meet. And this space is for the purpose of sacred interaction with God the Father who loves us like crazy. So before we jump into chapter 4, can I pray for us right quick? Let's pray. Lord, you are good and your mercy endures forever. Father, I pray for an outpouring of your Holy Spirit over us. God, may there be in our hearts a spirit of sacredness, that this space that we have worked to create would be not for our own kudos or our own blessing, but may it be created for this purpose of divine interaction with God the Father and His church. Now bless our time as we look at what David says in chapter 4 of Psalms. This is a love letter. And I pray, Jesus, you speak through it to us today. Prepare our hearts in Jesus' name. Everybody said. Amen. So, if you have your Bibles, would you please turn to Psalm chapter 4. Maybe you have a paper version, hard copy. Maybe you have a digital copy on your phone. Please pull it out, take a look at it. We're going to get into that in just a second. A couple of weeks ago when we began this walk through the Psalms, we did so with the idea of emulating it as a love letter. And you find in this love letter David's words of adoration towards God the Father. But then you also find in the Psalms, you find God's words of adoration towards the man after God's own heart. And so we began a couple of weeks ago. I challenged you to read a psalm a day. And I hope that that's been a part of your story. I hope that that's been a part of it. If not, hey, it's okay, start today. And just make it a point through the end of this season, this series, which will be Labor Days when we're done. I want to invite you to just read a psalm a day and capture onto what David writes in his love letter to the Lord. So, okay. All right, I gotta hurry. I don't want your roast to burn, all right? To move forward right quick, let's go ahead and jump into Psalm chapter 4. Because of what chapter 4 looks like, let me just give you a breakdown. There are 3 stanzas in Psalm chapter 4, okay? There's 3 stanzas, okay? There's if it were a psalm, it'd be a verse, another verse, and another verse, okay? And in between each one, you'll see the word interlude, or you might see the word Selah, or Amen. And it's broken up into 3 stanzas, as if to say there's 3 topics I want to discuss. And each of these 3 topics is really going to be kind of funny, because whether David knew it or not, he was going to present a big word. Okay? Big word qualified as more than 3 syllables. Okay? And I want to present to you what David is talking about in this Psalm chapter 4. Okay? So the first big word that he talks about is the word reconciliation. Now, as is his custom through all 3 of these big words, he has an approach of focusing that word upward and then focusing that word outward. Okay? So let's look at the first approach, looking upward. This word of reconciliation, here's what it says. Answer me when I call to you, O God, who declares me innocent. Free me from my troubles. Have mercy on me and hear my prayer. What it means to reconcile. What it means to reconcile. Maybe you have a checkbook and you get a bank statement and you will align your checkbook with your bank statement to make sure that they are on the same page. Right? This word reconcile means to align. Are we hot, cold? Do I need to hit a button? I don't mind hitting a button. All right, I'm going to hit one button on this one over here. Okay? Here, it'll kick on. All right? I want you to be comfortable, but not so comfortable you fall asleep, right? Reconciliation means to align with. Checkbook, you align with what the bank says you have according to your bank statement. And that's what we find that David writes. He says, "O God, who declares me innocent." David is saying, God, you have aligned me with you. You say that I am reconciled with you. But notice that what David's praying is, free me from my troubles, have mercy on me and hear my prayer. You know what that means? That means that when you're reconciled, that doesn't necessarily mean that your troubles are going to go away. When you're reconciled with Christ, that doesn't mean that suddenly life is a bed of roses. But it means that you have a God to pray to for strength, protection, and provision. After he focuses the word reconciliation up, he focuses it out. How long will you people ruin my reputation? How long will you make groundless accusations? How long will you continue your lies? What's he saying? He's saying, you and me, we're not reconciled. How long are we going to not be reconciled? How long are we not going to be on the same page? How long before we put this together and we actually become family? By the way, you know who he's most likely talking about is his son. In other words, he's having reconciliation issues with his family. Anybody ever had reconciliation issues with family? Just me? Oh man. Just check. Reconciliation. Up, out. Second word is this. Consecration. What it means to be consecrated means to be set apart. It's kind of like having fine china that you only use on the days that you invite special and important people over, or for special holidays. It's set apart. It means it's sacred. Beginning verse 3, you can be sure of this. The Lord set apart the godly for himself. The Lord will answer when I call to him. What he's saying is that I am consecrated to God because he says I am. There's this upward focus. Then there's an outward focus where David writes, don't sin by letting anger control you. Think about it overnight and remain silent. You know what happens when you get mad and you say something that causes a break in the alignment with whoever? Let's say you and your spouse get into an argument and suddenly you say something, you shoot your mouth off. I am not guilty of that one. And suddenly that alignment is broken. That's what he's saying, is protect your consecration. Protect your alignment in how you do this. So there's this focus of consecration upward and a consecration outward. Be careful what you say out of anger so that you can protect your alignment, your consecration to one another. Finally, there's another word. That word is concession. Now, no, I'm not talking about the little stand at the end of the football stadium on Friday nights where you go get your popcorn and your nachos and your hot chocolate, right? This is not what that means. Some of you are laughing, some of you are not getting it. It's okay. Concession, what this means is to surrender or to yield. Maybe you remember presidential elections or other elections where the race is not quite over yet. The election is not quite over yet, but the way that the votes are coming in, the way the ballots are reading, you kind of see who the imminent winner is, and you see who the second person on the ballot is. You see where he's at, and he finally decides to make a phone call, and he makes a phone call to the person who's in the lead and says, I obviously can see that I'm not going to win this election. I just want you to know I want to concede from the race, and I wish you the best. Congratulations. That's what concession means. It means to yield, means to surrender. I'm not a huge Jack Nicholson fan, but there's a movie he did with Helen Hunt called As Good as It Gets. Now let's see if I can quickly move through this. In this movie, he's a obsessive compulsive novelist, and he's irritable and he's grouchy, and everything has to be just so. And he goes to the same restaurant and sits at the same table, and if somebody's sitting at this table, he runs them off. And it's the same waitress that waits on him every time. And it's Helen Hunt. Well, long story short, he kind of falls for her. He kind of falls in love with her. But of course, because of his obsessive compulsive nature, he's kind of over the top in how he communicates that. And of course, she doesn't know how to deal with that. Finally, he invites her to go to dinner. And they're sitting at a dinner table, and he says to her, "You make me want to take pills. You make me want to take pills." And she's like, "Oh, that's it. You blame me for your addiction. That's all it takes." And he kind of gets frustrated. He says, "No, wait. Let me explain." And he says, "The doctor, my doctor, has given me this prescription of medication that when I take the pills, that I'm able to be a little bit less cantankerous and moody. But I don't like taking the pills because of how it makes me feel. But when I'm with you, I want to take the pills so that I'm less irritable and you can be a part of my story." That's what guys and girls do when they kind of start to fall for the person that makes their heart move. They can see, I'm willing to give up this because I want to be around you. Does that make sense? That's what this word concession means. Now David doesn't start with up. He starts with out. I want you to listen to what he says. He says this. He says, offer sacrifices in the right spirit and trust the Lord. He's talking to those who are earth level. He's talking to other humans. He's talking to his oppressors. He's saying, offer sacrifices in the right spirit. And here's why that means what it means. Because, you see, the fact of the matter is that the Lord of the harvest, He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. He doesn't need our sacrifices. He doesn't need your gifts. Doesn't need your offerings. But He wants you to do so with the right spirit. And that spirit is the spirit of concession. You are the God of the universe. You have blessed me beyond my greatest comprehension. And I trust you with my whole life. And that's what He's saying. He says, I'm telling you out here, make your offerings of sacrifice with the right spirit. And then he says, many people will say, who will show us better times? And what he's saying is that don't give just because you think God's going to give you back. And then he goes up. And I love what he says. This is just a phenomenal verse. He says, let your face smile on us. You have given me greater joy than those who have abundant harvest or grain and new wine. Notice, I've got joy that can't be bought. I've got joy that can't be earned because you lavish it on me. In peace, I will lie down and sleep. How many of you like to sleep in peace? That's what David is saying. In peace, I will lie down and sleep. For you alone, O Lord, will keep me safe. What he's saying is that I have conceded to you. I have surrendered my everything to you. Because I have. Because I've surrendered everything to you, you have given me joy that can't be bought. You have given me peace that can't be explained. So there's reconciliation up. There's consecration up and out. And there's concession up and out. And without knowing it, David outlined the purpose of the church in chapter 4 of Psalms. You see, to be reconciled with Christ, means to align with Christ. It means to be Christ-like. It means to be Christian. To be reconciled to one another means to align with one another, to work towards harmony among ourselves, to actually exist in community. To be consecrated to Christ means to be set apart, means no other gods before you, Jesus. To be consecrated to Christ means to be holy as he is holy. To be consecrated to one another means to be set apart, to support and be supported, to be a part of the structure of the body and the bride of Christ, to be community together. To be consecrated to one another means to be community. To concede to Christ means whatever you want, God. Whatever you want. You tell me I can have joy everlasting, I can have peace everlasting if I will trust you with my everything, then okay, I'll do it. I concede, I surrender, I yield. And because I do this, God, you can have your way with me, and I will be your man. I will be your woman. I will go where you want me to do. I will go where you want me to go. I'll do what you want me to do. I'll give what you want me to give because it's all yours. And when we do this, we become missional. We become usable. To concede to one another means accountability. It means iron sharpening iron and willing to be iron sharpening iron. It means servant leadership. It means being vulnerable to one another. That's what conceding there is. Up and out. Up and out. Also falls in line with the Great Commandment. The Great Commandment that Jesus shared multiple times in the Gospels, but I'll share with you Matthew chapter 22, verses 37 through 40. If we look up first, you must love who? The Lord your God. How? With all of your heart, soul, and mind. This is the greatest commandment. Out. And the second is equally important. To love your neighbor as yourself. And then he goes on to say, the entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments. You know what that means, church? Is that if we simply keep up and out priority, that I would completely and totally love God with all my heart, soul, and mind and strength, and love my neighbor as myself, then everything else will fall into place. Up and out also applies to the core values of the Church of the Nazarene. The Church of the Nazarene, which was birthed over 100 years ago, and is a global church with missionaries in over 150